Good evening and greetings from Jerusalem, Jane. It's been a long day. I just sat down here at my little dining table and I want to quickly just run through some of the news and just please hold on. We're going to go from one topic to another because so much is happening. But when Israel was brutally attacked on October 7 and Hamas breached the fence into Israel and all of these terrorists came in on motorcycles, pickup trucks in full military uniforms and armed to the teeth with thousands of weapons, of grenades, of hand grenades, anti-tank missiles to commit a full frontal assault on Israel. It was being broadcast mainly because these terrorists was wearing body cam. So they were live streaming out to the world the atrocities that they committed. But in some of these videos, you all of a sudden saw journalists. Journalist was right there with the vest saying press, and they were right there in the midst of it broadcasting also. Some of them even breached into Israel. They entered into Israel, was recording from the kibbutzes, taking photos of the mutilated bodies of Israeli soldiers, taking photos of Israeli tanks that were set on fire. And I remember I was talking about that and I said, who is that? How come they just happened to be right there? When some of the elderly people was being paraded around inside Gaza, they were standing right there taking photos. So Honest Reporting came out with an article yesterday because they looked into it and they found out that there were 4 of these journalists who was actually working for the New York Times, AP, CNN, and Reuters. So these big media outlets had journalists who was right there on the spot filming these atrocities. You got to be kidding me. So of course the Israeli government immediately contacted these media outlets. You can hear the sound now is actually because there's red alert on my phone. So the Israeli government press office contacted these media outlets and said, what in the world is going on? Who are your journalists who is participating in all of this? And then it came out more background informations. One of these journalists is actually seen with an explosive device in his hand as he's on the back of a motorcycle crossing from Gaza into Israel. Another one of them is taking a selfie with the leader of Hamas, who is Israel's #1 enemy, the one Sinwar, the one who planned this whole attack on Israel. So that is making headlines all around the world. Some of these journalists are Hamas supporters, and they were right there on the spot. What also came out, and what I have been talking about the whole time, is who are all the people wearing civilian clothes? When Hamas has breached the fence, who are all of these people in civilian clothes who is streaming into Israel? They were looting the houses, they were robbing the houses, they took part in the kidnapping of Israeli civilians and dragging them into the Gaza Strip. We all saw the videos of the young girl who was sitting on a motorcycle with a man in front of her and behind her, and she was reaching out screaming for her boyfriend. She was kidnapped into the Gaza Strip by someone wearing civilian clothes. Her boyfriend was taken in by someone wearing civilian clothes. When they came into the Gaza Strip, we saw they were being paraded on the streets by civilians. Who was spitting on them and cursing on them? Civilians inside the Gaza Strip. Hamas had detailed information about the kibbutzes. Who lives where? Who has a dog? Where are the weapons? Where are the security guards? And they got that information from civilians who every day was allowed into Israel to work, to make a good living that they could bring in to their families living inside the Gaza Strip. A soldier came out and said some of the civilians took part in raping, abusing the innocent civilians inside the Gaza Strip. I'm sorry, taking part of the abuse and the rape of the Israeli civilians. It's It's very, very important that you hear these things I'm saying right now, because there are so much focus right now on the innocent civilians inside the Gaza Strip. And yes, there are many innocent civilians, there are many who doesn't support Hamas, but there are certainly also a lot of people who hate Israel and who support Hamas. And every time a rocket is being fired into Israel, they were cheering. When these atrocities took place, they were cheering. Every time a rocket is flying in now, they are cheering. When we have terror attacks over the years that I have been here, they are out in the streets handing out sweets, celebrating that another Jew was murdered. So they are happy about all of that. But of course now Israel is going after the terrorists inside the Gaza Strip, and they have to relocate. All of a sudden they're the innocent civilians. The Israeli intelligence agencies has talked to more than 700 people, taken testimonies from more than 700 people, many of them who survived these massacres. They're taking down these testimonies, and more things are coming out about the sexual, violent, heinous abuse of Israeli women, Israeli elderly women, and even children. There was a testimony from a lady who said, there was a woman being raped in front of me. She was naked, she had long hair, the terrorists were pulling back her hair, and he was brutally raping her. Her private parts were bleeding. She was passed on to the next one, and he raped her. And while he's raping her, he shot her in her head, and they cut off one of her breasts, threw it on the streets, and was playing with it like they were playing soccer. So many stories about sexual, violent rape. Some of these victims, their bones were broken. Their pelvis was broken from the brutality of the hate, the violence. And because so many of them was raping one woman. So the Israeli military, Shin Bet, are taking testimonies from all of these people who survived this, who were bear witnesses. And of course they are also interrogating the terrorists themselves, and they are spilling their beans. The Israeli military has released several videos with them telling them, but we were told to go into Israel and murder, to rape. Yesterday he came out, they spoke to a high-ranking Hamas terrorist, and he said, well, we were told to just go in and rape the women and murder the children. And they said, why are you murdering the children? And he says, because they are going to grow up and they are going to be Israeli soldiers. They were also told to, in order to create even more fear, to rape dead bodies, to mutilate dead bodies. It is beyond, the atrocities is beyond anything you can imagine, anything we have seen since the Second World War. This terrorist was asked, do you feel sorry about what you did? Do you regret it? No, absolutely not. And in his own word, he says, Hamas, we are ISIS. So they're gathering all of these information in order to prosecute many of these terrorists. Just before I went on this video recording all of this, Palestinian Islamic Jihad released a video with 2 hostages, an elderly lady and a 13-year-old boy, saying that they are about to be released for health reasons. So in order for you to understand this whole scenario, Hamas came in fully armed to the teeth, 3,000 terrorists, including someone also from Islamic Jihad, with thousands and thousands of weapons. They killed, they mutilated, they decapitated, they burned people alive, they burned children alive, and also civilians. So some of the people who is held captive right now inside Gaza, they are with Hamas, some of them are with Islamic Jihad, and then some of them are being held by civilians. Excuse me, but the minute you participate in something like this, you are no longer a civilian, you are a terrorist. You are a terrorist. So Israel's defense forces continue to move forward inside the Gaza Strip. They are finding so many tunnels, 500 kilometers of tunnels beneath the Gaza Strip. This is what they have been building for the last 20 years. And they are finding all of these tunnels next to UNRWA schools, next to hospitals, next to mosques, inside the mosque, and also in residential buildings. They are finding tunnels in amusement park. They are finding tunnels in a place with their Boy Scouts. They are finding rocket launching pads in all of these places too, because Hamas don't care about their own people. It is more important with their sick demonic hate to murder the Jewish people. So all of these things are coming out. The Israeli Defense Forces are doing a great job inside the Gaza Strip, finding all of these tunnels, blowing them up, and in the midst of all of this, they are killing a lot of terrorists who just jumps out from all of these tunnels to murder the soldiers. Today they also came up to a residential building, and I'm sharing all of this on my Telegram channel. They came up to an apartment where there were suicide drones. There were all of these drones that were supposed to fly into Israel. They were manufacturing weapons in an apartment where right next door there was a bedroom for 3 little girls. Right there in the midst of a residential building. Hamas is hiding between the civilians. There was a phone conversation saying, there was a Hamas terrorist saying, you know what, if we want to move around in the Gaza Strip, we just take an ambulance. I can get whatever ambulance I want. That's how they move around. The other day, the Israeli Defense Forces was shooting at an ambulance because it was packed with Hamas terrorists. But then the whole world is up in arms because Israel is attacking an ambulance, but it's full of terrorists. So things are tense inside the Gaza Strip. Israel is taking more and more ground. They are doing such a good job. Things are very tense on the northern border, also being shot at from Hezbollah. Israel is retaliating. And of course, things out in the Judea and Samaria is very tense. This morning, Israeli Defense Forces went in to Jenin. I have reported so much about Jenin. I've shared so many videos of how they are marching in the streets like a full army, dressed in military uniforms with automatic, semi-automatic weapons, M16s. So when the Israeli military went in this morning to arrest terrorists, of course they are being attacked again. So there were actually several terrorists who was killed today in Jenin. And there was also a terrorist cell in a car that was on their way to attack the troops, and they were taking out. So things are very tense in the Gaza Strip, on the northern border, and also in Judea and Samaria. You have to understand something. When people are talking about the innocent Palestinian Arabs, yes, there is a lot of them, but most of them, so many of them, are absolutely 100% behind this armed struggle against the Jewish people to liberate Palestine from the river to the sea. Palestine would be free. And Hamas is not just inside the Gaza Strip. Hamas is everywhere. They are in many of the neighboring countries. Their leaders are sitting in Qatar, living in a 5 luxury hotel, having billions in their bank accounts, and they are spread out in the Judea and Samaria. Just in these last 3 weeks, the Israeli Defense Forces, the border police, the Shin Bet has arrested more than nearly 1,000 terrorists who belonged to Hamas. So they are hugely popular amongst the civilian population. So Israel is doing everything they can to keep me and everybody else in this country safe. I just also want to mention that just before I spoke, there was we were fired upon down from, let me see if I can find it here. Here it is. This is what the IDF says. Following initial report, a missile was launched toward Israeli territory, and it was identified and successfully intercepted in the area of the Red Sea by the aerial defense system. So a missile was shot at Israel down from the south towards Tel Aviv. So things are really on high alert here in Israel. So we continue to need your prayers. Pray for every single man and women in uniform. Instead of being home with their families, they are out now. And I think is it 35, 36 soldiers who has been killed since that horrendous day where Israel was so brutally attacked. So yeah, it's just evening here, just sitting here at my little table. So I just quickly wanted to get this update out so all of you, so you know what's going on down here. For such a time as this, we will always stand with Israel. Bye.